start with. So welcome everyone. Welcome to this free webinar with the Rested You, with me, Rachel, and Claudia. We co-created and collaborate on this project together from different parts of Norway. And we want to welcome you here to this webinar on why guiding deep rest is often misunderstood. And we're going to go through, some of the important things that we would love to share with you guys. So wherever you are, whatever your day looks like or has been like, take a moment to become aware of the space around you. So that might just be looking around if you're in a room, taking in the whole space, the floor above you, the sides, and then noticing what's underneath you. So if there is a bed or a chair or a floor or whatever else it might be, just feeling that underneath you, that it's supporting you. And then also that might help you notice whether you need to adjust your position or you want to make yourself even more comfortable. Making sure you're warm. Maybe you have a drink with you, and know that at any point during this hour together, you can do whatever it is that you need to do to be comfortable, to take care of yourself. So while you're here, just taking a breath in through your nose and imagine filling up your whole capacity of your lungs. And then when you get to the top, open your mouth and just gently sigh the breath all the way out. We'll do that again one more time, taking a long breath in through the nose. See if you can soften your neck and your jaw and your face. And then once you get to the top of that inhale, open your mouth and just lightly guide that breath out into a sigh. And as you do that, see if you can let your body get a little bit more soft and sinking into that support that is around you. And even if you're standing or walking, even that of the ground that you're walking on, the spaciousness around you, it's like creating a bubble of comfort and protection around you, wherever you are. So then when you're ready, if you had your eyes closed, you can open them and welcome. Hmm. How are you doing, Claudia?
Thank you. I feel we're always
So,
very on brand that we are hosting these sessions from a cozy space like a bed.
yeah.
Um, Welcome. We have very consciously decided to not come with any sort of slideshow this evening, any sort of presentation, because if you're joining us live, it's 8 o'clock in the evening, and that isn't necessarily the best time to look at screens anymore. So we invite you to just lay down and listen. The chat is open if you want to write any questions or anything that you want to share. And then we're going to use the rest of our time together to dive into the topic of what it actually takes to guide deep rest. And we put kind of between these, like, what do you even call them in English, Rachel?
Like brackets, is it?
Half
Brackets?
moons.
Yeah,
Um,
brackets.
um, we even added like, and why it's more than guiding or reading out a script. So that's what we are, and that's what we'll do this evening.
And there's many of you maybe watching this afterwards. And so we really encourage you to, if something comes up that you're curious, or we say something you're like, oh, that's me, or I want to know more about that, then write us an email. Like the email you get from us, just reply to us. And yeah, we will get back to you.
I think one of the interesting things is with all sorts of rest practice that have gotten quite a bit more popular over the last few years, and that's great, right? That's actually really good news, and not just for us who work in that field, but really good news for people who are trying to experience more rest. Um, is that it looks quite simple from the outside, helping people rest or guiding them through a rest practice where I've heard people say that many times before, but you're just reading something, right? You're just reading something out loud. And even though that sometimes is the case, that is a practice that we read out, which is not something we always do, but we can talk more about that later. Um, there's a whole lot behind
Mm,
that what we read out, and that's something that we want to get a little bit more in this evening because what you're working with, if you do this guiding of rest practices, is with people's nervous systems, people in sometimes quite tender, vulnerable states. We meet a lot of people who are burned out or are recovering or are just plain simple exhausted. And that is a tender space to be in, and that is a tender space that we're trying to hold in a safe way. So, things we'll be touching upon this evening are things like language, pacing, the not just the words you choose, but the voice you give those words,
mm,
the speed or the slowness that you speak with, the creating that full package of that rest practice, which is a little bit more than reading out a few words from a piece of paper or from a laptop screen.
mm. Yeah, and I think it's taken, like we both come from a background of teaching yoga first and like more of the movement and maybe meditation also, but mostly like the movement part of things. And I think for myself as well, I was really seeing people's states, like how they were feeling as like seeing it through their movement. So yeah, the more you teach people, right, the more you're observing, the more you're seeing different bodies and people in different life stages and people going through different things. And I think that, teaching a movement class made me realize this was before even Yoga Nidra, right? And guiding deep breath was how much languaging and observing the people in front of you really matters for then you as the guide to then choose what it is and how you're going to kind of interact with these people and how you're going to, like Claudia said, use your voice, what kind of language you're going to use, what kind of movement are you going to do, how are you going to explain it, and I think that became even more like understandable and I realized was such a huge thing when I started to learn about Yoga Nidra because I was seeing a lot of people that were, I could see in their movement that they were tired and exhausted, and yet we need to move, right? So I didn't really think it's like, yeah, we need to move. So moving in a class, moving active, doing stuff, right? But then Yoga Nidra is the opposite of that. It's like doing nothing. And at the same time, so it's like doing nothing physically, right? We're not trying to be active. But at the same time, there's actually so much going on inside of us. And so that is the bit that we can't see if we're just looking with like maybe like with non-observer eyes. Like we're just looking around the room, we don't really look to see people. But if you're really seeing someone when they go into a deep rested state, like everything changes about them because their body is going to start to soften, or they might start, having little involuntary movements, or they might snore, or there's so many things going on within the body that to maybe some people's eyes, they're not really seeing anything. And so they're thinking, oh, nothing's happening. But really, there's so much going on in the brain, in the nervous system, in the physical body. And it's quite incredible. And that's why it's such an important place to come back to often. It's not somewhere that we cannot solely rely on entering when we sleep. It's actually important that we enter these states of rest and recovery whenever we need to. So that's like frequently during our days, uh, in small and big ways. And so the nervous system is being guided into softening in a practice of deep rest, which is something that if you are like many of us, when our nervous system is not feeling soft and uh, kind of calm, it can be very hard to go from a state of being like very high and stressed or feeling a lot of tension in the body, maybe the brain is going a lot. That can be a really hard transition to go from that to actually letting the nervous system shift into that soft and restorative state. So that in itself is something that takes good cueing, good understanding of the nervous system and what it prefers, what it responds to really well. And then also what's happening in the body is that the body is becoming more internally aware of itself. So it's becoming almost like the that ability to see and know what's going on outside of us, like in the outer world, that kind of we deliberately want that to like go away because we close our eyes, we turn our senses inwards. So our internal awareness becomes very like increased. And that's also something that is comes from good cueing and understanding of like how do we shift that awareness from the outside inwards? How do we help guide a person to allow that to happen within them? Because that's also something that we don't often train or come back to in our daily lives. We're very much in the outer world, in the external, because there's so much that is requiring our attention all the time. So you can imagine trying to guide someone and improve their ability to switch from the external to the internal is also a process and it needs to be guided well and with understanding. And that kind of comes along with this whole idea of letting go of control. And, maybe that it's quite difficult for us to want to let go of everything that's going on around us in the external world. I think we see the most as like this resistance to resting is very much maybe part of this idea that we find it really difficult to let go, right, of what's going on in the world. And yeah, so, and I can feel that for myself when I'm really involved in something and I really want to get it done, but then I know that my capacity is like getting super maxed out. But that's when I know it will be so good if I go do yoga nidra now. And I've learned over the years that that works. So I do that now. But I still get that tension between external and internal. I still get the tension. I just have learned what's normally best for me. So that is a practice that takes time too. So yeah, that's kind of some of a lot of it's about the tension between where we often are and what where deep rest is and the guiding to get from one to the other. It takes so much awareness and technique and presence. It's not just reading a script, like Claudia said. The script may have been written really well, and that might help you a ton, but there's also a lot that comes from the reader themselves and their ability to be aware of their surroundings, their environment, and how they are connecting and communicating through their nervous system and not just through their voice and their body language, but their nervous system is also like regulating with the people they're with.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to share more on that, the guidance?
No, I think you summed that up really well with in terms of when it comes to how we actually guide and how we try to hold people, no matter if that is a group or if that is a one-to-one session, and also no matter if that is online or live. Um, what is also a very important ingredient and that we speak quite a lot about when we train new Yoga Nidra facilitators or deep rest facilitators is that point where you touched upon at the very end, where it's also about how we, as the people guiding, or if that is you teaching a class, or if that is you holding space as, I don't know, a therapist, a body worker, a, I don't know, someone working in HR. That doesn't really matter where you are, but the way we hold ourselves when we work with people, the way we have tended to our nervous system before we meet these people is actually very important. And 99% of the time, we have uh, either not the time or the the opportunity to do a 30-minute yoga nidra ourselves before we host and meet and talk to people. But there are all these things that we can do to ground us, like even the little landing that Rachel did here at the very beginning. That is great for you all, but is also great for us. It also tunes us into, okay, where are we? What are we going to do? How are we going to meet these people? No matter if you're now here with us live or if you're seeing that as a recording, we truly try to tend to our nervous system in that landing moment as well. And of course, we had 15 minutes before that to go through that too. But actually, when we come on in a either a live session, and it also happens when we train people or when we host a workshop or a class, that we have that moment ourselves as well. Because people will notice when you're not grounded or when you come rushing in and that can still happen. But when we cannot release that rushing and when we cannot release that ungroundedness, then we're actually not safe guides ourselves. That's a very important part. I also wanted to mention for those of you who weren't in our previous webinar where we talked a little bit more about what is actually happening in Yoga Nidra. With this recording, you'll get a link to a page where all that information is and where also the previous webinar is, because I think it can be quite interesting to actually go back and watch, okay, what is actually happening in Yoga Nidra? What is happening to our brain? Because it's, I mean, we're quite nerds when it comes to this, but it's really quite exciting to see how the brain can be in similar states as when we are in deep sleep or very deep meditation, and what that means for what the practice can actually help us. I don't really like the word achieve, but what the effects of the practice can be. So that you can really go back to that and listen to that either on a walk or, um, I mean, anytime when you like to listen to
Mm.
things. So also
Yeah, no,
us as grounded guides is something that we really try to go quite deep in when we train other facilitators.
mm. And I guess like we get to sample and listen to many different yoga nidra practices and styles. And that's such a gift because I feel so lucky to have listened to so many, and many of them are amazing and wonderful. And I, yeah, love them, and we love sharing them with people. Um, but it helps us to really understand what makes a good yoga nidra, because that is what has time and time again showed us that it is so important how the guides' presence and energy when they are guiding the practice, whether it's live or recorded, because our nervous systems are picking up on so much from each other. And so one thing we were talking about earlier is like we often, well, we've seen this before where someone will guide their yoga nidra and they'll guide it as if they were talking in a meeting room. So they're very like and it's very natural to do that, right? If you've ever had talking experience, it's most likely going to be in that type of like scenario. You're either like standing up in front of people, you might be a teacher, or you might be giving a meeting or presenting something. And then we have this kind of presenter voice or teacher voice on that's a little bit more upbeat, perhaps. We're trying to capture people's attention. So we're very engaged in what we're saying. Um, and it can have a fast pacedness to it, or like more of a pace to it that's um, it's more geared up for people uh listening to you and seeing you as like the person giving all the information. So it's like a teacher-student relationship, communication thing. Whereas, and that so that can come off as quite like hard and quite hard to follow when you're actually trying to establish a more rested state. So we need to be quite present and we need to be quite like aware and alert to be able to follow that type of voice. So when guiding a type of deep rest practice, our voice actually has to like drop down into this more calm. It has to match the words and the language we're using. It wants to follow a pace that feels easier to the ears to listen to so that it's not going too fast, that we completely miss what they say. And then we're like, oh, well, I haven't, because as we start to rest, everything starts to slow down. We don't want ourselves to be fully alert and like trying to cognitively piece everything together. We want it to be more like it's in the background and the words and the voice is just kind of floating around us. Like it's there for us to take in, but we don't have to do anything with it. It's like it's present with us. And that's something that's very different if you're taking a presentation or you're teaching people something. It's a totally different way of using your voice, using your body, and how you also are relating to the people that you're speaking to. How do you see them? How are you relating to these people? What kind of relationship do you think this is? Rest is very much about creating safety. So it has to be from the backbone of this idea of like, we are equals. This is a place where we're trying to create a space of safety as best as possible that we can. And also, our languaging is going to be very aware of that, that we're not using words that could be associated with triggering people or um, words that could be, harmful or really super negative. Um, there's so much around the languaging that we go that is very important to this as well. And again, this idea of it not being too cognitive, we're not trying to create a thesis or explain like how the world was born in in this guided meditation. It has to be simple enough that a person that is close to sleep can still follow along. So there's so much intelligence in that balance.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like the things that we often notice are missing from a practice that we would say was a really good practice of Yoga Nidra. Like any of those things could be missing, and it's not, it's gonna, the nervous system will say no before anything else does. It's
So
just
true.
you don't want to listen to it, right?
I love how you actually, when you explained that, you actually went through different like pacing and different like tones. It was
But it's
it
like
was
we're
very
not going to do it
interesting.
in the same voice we teach like a vinyasa class. It's
Well,
just
that
not the same
too.
thing, right?
When when yoga teachers initially, when you train to be a yoga teacher, you learn a lot about creating shapes with bodies and on how to connect these shapes together into a class plan. And then we often lack a lot of knowledge actually when it comes to the rest bit, where it sometimes really ends up being a shavasana and a nice song, and that's it. And there is actually so much more potential in that point. Even when it's a short yoga class, we don't always have time for a 30 or 15 minute rest bit at the end. But even short rest moments can get really powerful if they're guided well. I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Mm,
I want to almost go back a tiny step into that
yeah,
idea of the script, because a lot of the yoga nidras, you've like many people who are on this list are either in our membership or join classes with us and have experienced Yoga Nidras with us. And many of those, especially the ones you'll find in our membership, are ones that were written out before, and they come from ideas, and there's this whole process, and we're not going to go too deep into that right now. But in a time where you can really, if you want, you can just ask ChatGPT, right, to make you a Yoga Nidra, and it will actually give you one. And we can attest that they're it's not so good. A lot of missed potential there. But um, what is important that this Yoga Nidra comes from something. It comes from an inspiration or a felt need, something that we felt was missing, or a theme, something that's going on. I don't know, in nature, seasons, cycles, feeling states, whatever. It can everything can be an inspiration. That is, I mean, that's very nice.
Mm,
It is a whole process to learn how to write all these different phases of a yoga nidra and to connect them well together. And what I think is really nice when we get to train people, that we get to be witnesses of their writing process, and we do that in different layers. We have our own methods. We also work with guest teachers who are specialized in different ways of writing. And it's so interesting to see people who either think they can't write, or they have kind of given that stamp to themselves of that they're not creative. Like the amazing things that come out of that. I mean, that for us, that's an honor to witness, but it's also really nice to know that really everyone can write these yoga nidras if we can come from a place of truth and ourselves and all the good stuff, curiosity, all those nice things. And then we don't even have to turn to external tools or ready-made scripts that really aren't our own.
mm,
Because if we use something that is not our own, it's not going to be our own voice. It's not going to feel true. It's not even going to sound true. Even if you try your best, it's not even going to sound true. And what a gift to the world it is that the people who learn to write these own practices and then to guide them can help other people with that. Because most likely, what inspired you, or not most likely, 100,000%, what inspired you, there's other people who need that too. And
mm,
especially now in a world that is so busy with burnout numbers still increasing, with a lot of people, I mean, simply just being tired and
mm,
exhausted and slightly overwhelmed. And there's so many there's so many areas of life that can be supported by a rest practice that is so simple to receive. Because what other thing is just so simple? You just put your AirPods in, or you just go lay down on a mat and you just receive. That is very beneficial for people in this busy world.
mm. Yeah, and to hear that someone else has struggled or is struggling with a similar feeling state, because I think that's where the connection happens. Like we all have our own stories and our own experiences, but the feeling states can be very similar across all of us, that we've all experienced this feeling or this emotion. And that's where you can, and this is what we get into in the internal, like taking the awareness into the internal body where there is a lot of sensation and feeling, and to be able to connect through someone else's guidance to something that you have also felt and experienced in your body. It's incredibly powerful for that piece that's often missing in our general like meetings and interactions with humans. It's like that feeling of deep connection, that someone else truly knows what you might be feeling, even though stories and experiences might be very different, but they're explaining and guiding something that feels so real in your own body, and yet they're not trying to take your autonomy or your experience away from you. It's like allowing your experience of how you're feeling and experiencing your body to be what it is, to be in that space and to have that full experience, and for it to not be wrong and for it not to be tried to be changed, or someone trying to, you know, put their opinions on it and things like that. So it's a quite a rare space that we never or we don't often get to experience. And I think that can also be a big piece that people find when they come to the practice of Yoga Nidra. And then also as the guide, it's like learning that that is like your secret power. And not that it's like a power over people, but your power of like your experiences and the feelings you felt, the sensations you felt that have come along with experiences are so important, um, to if you want to share that with other people through your practices. It's a beautiful way to connect with humans and to create this remembrance that we're all together in this, that we can support and heal together, that we can rest together. It's like sounds maybe crazy, but it's being in a group in a room where people feel safe enough to rest with each other and they might not even know each other. That's huge, right? And people feel that generosity and that kindness and that softness in that space. And a lot of us need or would love to feel more of that in our daily lives, because it brings us to a place that feels so nourishing and so needed. And so being a guide of that gives us so much, it brings us into that space as well. So it's nourishing for us as guides because we understand what it is that we're going through with these people. Like we're co-creating this experience together instead of it, being more of that like standing over someone and impact, like imposing over someone. So yeah, there's a lot of this learning or relearning dynamics between humans. And that's a really also a very interesting. We talk so much about communication in the training as well, which is something that we really love talking about, and how that then goes on to affect other relationships and the way you communicate in general in your life, because it really teaches you other ways of using your voice and your languaging. And so there's many beautiful ways that learning how to guide deep rest can actually impact and translate into other areas of our lives. And that also I think is very surprising to most of the people that we work with, of how it shows up in so many different ways and in joyful ways, like surprising and beautiful. And yeah, it's really special to see.
It is really special. And I mean, yeah, it's like what Rachel says, we have a healthy obsession with all things communication and language and all of that. And we use that in the training in different, or we get into that in the training in different ways. There's a whole section on trauma aware guiding, inclusive guiding and writing and very important things like that.
And discussing it together in the group
Yes.
with everyone. So voices are heard, experiences are heard, because it's not just our knowledge and experience. Ours always is growing when we're meeting people. And so it's like it's ever evolving and changing and getting more inclusive and more, yeah, attuned to different bodies and different beings. So it's a really nice way to expand this knowledge actually.
Yeah.
Shall we do a little practice?
Let's do it.
Do you want to guide it or shall I?
I'll go.
Yeah, you want to do it. I love this,
If
but this is
you
like,
are actually in a position where you can lie down, I'm gonna suggest you do that if that is not possible right now because you're walking or you've just, I don't know, you're hiding in a meeting room at your office, then you can sit, all good. If you're walking, keep walking, all good. Then you can maybe come back to this later. And then I'm going to suggest that we bring our two hands together and then start to rub those hands. So no matter if you're seated or lying down, you're going to rub those hands and you're going to really bring a bit of warmth and energy and life between those two hands. And once the hands are nice and warm, you're going to land them somewhere on your body, wherever it feels natural to now let those warm hands land. Let your body receive that warmth, that nourishment from those hands. Even just a gentle pressure that we get from by just resting hands on body. That is already a little signal of safety to the body. It's the idea that you are held and that you are here. You can either leave your hands right here if this is a place where your hands can rest effortlessly, or you can release your hands and land them somewhere where it feels like you don't have to hold them up, where your arms can rest as much as the rest of your body. If it feels safe to close eyes and you haven't already, you can close the eyes, but trust and know that you can also keep them open if that feels safer for you. I'm going to invite you to take a breath in through the nose and to sigh that breath all the way out of the mouth. You can do that twice more if it felt good. You can also pause here if that feels better. Consciously softening your bottom jaw with that last exhale. Maybe it turns into a yawn while the body breathes, or maybe you just wiggle the jaw a little while the body breathes itself. Welcoming softness then around the muscles around your eyes. So as if you let those tiny muscles that support your eyes, as if you let them widen and soften them so that your eyes can rest back. As if you give your eyes a little break from all that outward seeing and watching and observing to more that kind of inward sensing and feeling. Softening the muscles of the cheeks by just bringing your awareness there. Letting the cheeks just be the cheeks. Bringing your awareness to your bottom jaw, with your awareness gently softening the jaw. And sensing your whole face melting, softening, just being. Feeling also the crown of your head, your scalp, all your hair, back of your head, your whole head now, your whole head. And from the head, our awareness is going to travel down to our throat space, and the back of our neck, moving deeper into the body, meeting both the shoulders, the depth of both your armpits, letting awareness travel down the upper arms and both the elbows, over the forearms, the wrists, and become fully aware of the palms of both your hands, receiving all that awareness into the palms of both the hands. And from the palms of the hands, it travels into both the thumbs and the index fingers and middle fingers, ring fingers and little fingers, even to the spaces between the fingers. And then when you reach the very tips of all the fingers, and then sense all 10 fingers together, both hands and both the arms, resting. Your awareness now travels to your chest, front of the ribs, side ribs, back ribs, to the lungs, the heart space, all the way through to the upper back. And then it travels down past the diaphragm to the middle of the belly and the middle of the back, and the lower belly and the lower back, and all those organs that are working on your behalf while you are resting. All your awareness now lands into the bowl of your pelvis, sensing your whole pelvis as one bowl. And through both the hips, awareness flows down into the upper legs, down into the knees, into the lower legs, to the ankles, filling up heels, soles of feet, tops of feet, and all 10 toes. You can even sense the spaces between the toes until you then reach the very tips of all the toes. You can become aware now of all the toes, both the feet and both the legs together, resting. Your whole torso resting. Arms, hands, fingers, head, the whole of you. The whole of you. The whole of you resting. The whole of you. And while your physical body rests, then there's the invitation to sense the more subtle flow of energy through the movement of your breath. Feeling that you breathe in and that you breathe out. We're going to imagine that the breath flows in and out through the pores of our skin. Imagine that you're breathing in and out through the pores of the skin of the body. Breathing in and out through the pores of the skin. Breathing in through your skin and out through your skin as if you're airing out the body. Nothing to shape about your breath, nothing to change, just working with your awareness as you breathe in and out through the skin. For a few more cycles of breath. One final breath in and out through the skin. And then you're going to let the body breathe itself. Breathing here effortlessly. Bathing in that sense of rest after having aired out the body. And after having aired out the body, we're going to let the body feel heavy. I'm going to invite you to let yourself feel so heavy, so heavy, so heavy. And then you're going to release the heaviness and instead invite in lightness, letting yourself feel so light, so light, so light. And then we release the lightness and we invite ourselves to feel both the heaviness and the lightness all at once. Feeling the heaviness and the lightness. You can release that now. And for yourself, please invite in the felt sense of balance from the heavy and the light all the way to where it feels balanced, where you feel in balance. From having journeyed around the body and having aired out the body, we now arrive in balance, and there you can actually float a little and be a little, where there's nothing to do, where there's no one to please. There's nothing to improve or push for or strive for. You can take these next few moments to just drift a little and be a little. And from that delicious space of balance, we come to completion. This little mini version of a Nidra is complete here. You can allow yourself time and space to float back up to the surface, to reconnect with the breath, perhaps, to invite in a yawn or a sigh. And let your body tell you where it can move or wiggle first, or maybe this made you just want to drift off to sleep. That's okay too. Then you sleep. And if you want to come back out, you can come back out. Be gentle with yourself. Give yourself time, space, and really let it be your way. Well done for resting. This takes us almost to the end of this little webinar where we wanted to talk about, and through the landing that Rachel did, and also through this little practice and through all the examples we have given, that we wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction into the importance of how we guide and how we shape these practices, and that what is behind it is a little bit more than a couple of random words on a piece of paper or on a laptop screen.
Maybe even now, as you're kind of like in this little space and you're like not fully back to alert, like full alertness, which is great. You don't need to be. Just like maybe give yourself a moment to just kind of stay in that for a little bit and like notice what felt supportive during that lovely guided practice. Like what felt supportive to you? Was there something that Claudia said or something that was guided and then you did it and you felt, what did you notice as you were going through that practice? And it doesn't have to be something that Claudia said or did, but what did you notice in your body that was going on? Um, but that this whole experience is not only shaped by Claudia's experience and a structure that she understands, and but also how she's presenting and being present with herself and the rest of us in this space, and really being able to start to notice how that feels and what that might feel like, because that's what we spend a lot of our time doing in our training. um, is
which is really nice because we
Yeah, it's
allow
really
a lot of
nice.
time for it. We've really structured it so that we spend a lot of time together. And that is
Mm,
important to get to know the brain, the nervous system, the structure of the practice, the how to guide, the all of the layers of it.
mm,
So it's important that we spend quite a bit of time on that. And that always makes it a very nice journey that takes us through autumn together, really. And which is
yeah,
in
lots of
general a really nice
practicing.
time to learn and to kind of
Yeah.
study and to dive deeper. It's often a time that we study as well, that we take courses and trainings and things like that. So it's the season for it.
Mm. Yeah, and like
100%.
combining lots of practicing with the learning is like
Mm,
it's such like the ultimate combo for the brain to take in information. It's like yoga nidra and learning is like it's like they were meant to be for each other. So
yeah,
yeah, it's a really fun moment. And obviously it's just, if you're listening and you feel curious, like you're curious as to some of the things we've talked about, um, and maybe the curiosity is purely to satisfy a part of you that's, loves learning or loves understanding things, or really feels like this would be beneficial to you. And then there's also, some of you might also be thinking like, like actually at some point there's this like shift of like maybe naturally wanting to share this with other people as well, that we see happen often throughout the process of, someone really just doing this as like a love of learning and curiosity, and for their own uh, enjoyment of life, improving their life. But, you know, that there is this like natural then wanting to then be like, hey, but then if more people got to experience this, how much joy and could we bring to the world? And that's something that we hear so much, and we love hearing that
mm,
because that's why we're here. We want more people to have these experiences that are free, and they're so simple and so easy, right? But it's like the impact is so big and
yeah.
so important in the world that we live in right now. So that's why we are here in this free webinar with you guys, to inspire and to kind of impassion you into wherever you are on your rest journey. If it's just to listen to more of our practices or go out there and listen to other practices, or if it's that you are curious to something a little more and taking this maybe a little deeper into your
Mm.
own into your own body. Yeah. Is there anything else you wish to share, Claudia?
I think I just want to say thank you. And you're really encouraged if you're watching this recording, just like Rachel said at the beginning, press reply to that email and ask. And even if you feel like, oh, is this for me? I'm not 100% sure. We can just do a little 15-minute chat on Zoom or on FaceTime where we
Yeah.
Well,
And
we
we're
can
pretty
tell you that
honest.
it's most
Yeah.
likely for you, but
Yeah. We're pretty honest.
we
Like
can
we can
explain
kind of
why.
tell, yeah, if someone's like, if it's meant to be for someone rather than if it's like not, it's like, we're just gonna be honest with you guys. So like the program and the training is for anyone, but sometimes like it's like, are you ready for it? Are
I
you
love
ready to do this? And are you like, is there that curiosity and is that excitement behind it? Because that's all it really takes. And this like feeling.
it.
Um, I know Miriam who did it a couple of years ago. She's like tells her she's like, I just had this feeling inside that this is what I was meant to do, and I'm so glad I listened.
Mm,
And that was her trusting her intuition. So it's her personal relationship with her intuition, but that's kind of what it is a bit like these things because where else are you going to there's not that many of this isn't on like a university curriculum so much like it's really like taking a leap of faith or a leap of trust in your own intuition, and I think that can be a really joyful experience as well.
I
So
love
yeah,
this.
I just want to say thank you as well, and
Thank
yeah, we look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
you. Sleep well.
Amazing. Yes. Sleep well, Maria. Thank you, everyone,
Thank
and
you.
have a great weekend. Rest well, and you'll get an email from us soon.